Good morning and welcome back to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing some work with frames and shakers, but this time we're going to be doing it on computer. So bear with me one moment while I set up being able to see your chat and things. Please say hi and let me know that you're watching. It would be useful for me to be able to see your comments and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to see you all. So I'm just going to get into the feed. Okay. So, hi Sue, hi Deb. And don't be afraid to say hi, ask questions. And I'm going to try and do as many different software packages as possible in the time that we have. So, morning Linda. So we're going to start nice and simple with Canvas because I think that's what probably 80% of what my audience will be using. So if we start there and work to more complicated, you'll be well way. Morning Carol, and enjoy your glass of water. Okay, so start with a new document and we're going to start off with a nice basic shape. So in this case, keep it nice and simple. Going to start with a circle just because I want something that's going to have some curve to it so that you can see exactly what's happening with the next section. I just clicked on that and brought it in at the standard size, which is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So if you want to work alongside with me as we go, that's fine, in which case I will try and go at your pace. But if I go too fast, then you can always skip the video back a bit or just ask me to repeat something, and that is fine too. So with your circle on the map, we're going to go to the text tool, and you can just type a capital T. So just tap with the T key on your keyboard. Now the reason I'm not going to do that is if I do that, it's going to come up with a thanks video again, which we don't want it to do. So I will click on the actual icon. You're going to see that your pointer is going to change to a cursor, and we're going to click anywhere on our mat, it doesn't matter where. And it's going to come up with a little text field. So I'm not going to say a text box because there's a slight difference between the two. So what you're going to see the difference here is you can actually see the characters that you are typing rather than the font that you're going to put that text in. Now because I've done a little bit of prep, I know which design I want to go with, but if you don't know and you're going to be using something like Dimbats, what I would say is start off by typing something like A, B, C, D, E. And if you really don't know the font, you can go all the way to Z if you want, but we'll start off with A, B, C, D, E and hit enter. And that's going to put it in whatever font you most recently used. So if we go into our font menu, now on Mac it's going to give you a preview of what that font's like. I'm not sure if it's quite the same on PC, but so long as you can see that you've got something that has designs in it, so the name's going to look a bit funny. So if I go all the way down to something like, you usually find all your dingbats are down towards the lower end of your fonts. So if we go for something like that, dingbats, you see, sometimes it won't necessarily give you the icon preview. So that's why we do the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, so on and so forth. So in terms of your simple fonts, anything that has wingdings, webdings, dingbats is going to be something that is symbol based. You can also get some that will be called decorations that will also have symbols in, and then others will just show the symbols and it won't make a lot of sense. So if we click on that one, you're going to see that although you had lots of symbols in your little preview, when it closes back up it's going to give you the font name. So I'm going to go back to that one for now. And we can see, because we've typed A, B, C, D, E, we've got the design that is on A, the design that is on B, the design that is on C, D and E. So this means that then we can choose between which one we want to use. So if that's, one of those, or if you want to then carry on and edit. So if we click again, it's going to come like that. Would it be possible to move the comments as they're in black on the black strip at the bottom of the page? Oh, bear with me one moment. Can I do that? That is a very good question. So I'm just going to flick back to... Hi Mum, hi Tracy. We were both watching on YouTube. I couldn't see the comments, but a moment. I'm just going to briefly flick onto my interruption screen so that I can change that. I'm going to have to do it like this because it's misbehaving. So let me just see if I can get the chat up there. So welcome to Streamlabs, everyone. And I will try and see if I can get that to behave. And it's probably better down here. So we'll see how that goes. Let me know and we'll see. Okay, just bear with me one moment while I flick back across to Facebook and hopefully be able to see everybody's comments on screen. Okay. Does somebody want to just pop up a comment and just see if it's going to behave? Because it looks like it's cutting stuff off, so I may have to tweak it again. In actual fact, let's see if I can do that very quick. I can put background colour in. Can I change the size? Yeah. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Just so I can see a bit more drop down. There we go. That looks more like it. I can just go done. There you go. A little bit of a how-to with Streamlabs there for you as well. So, once you've decided which design you want to use, you're going to want to change that text. So if you click on it again, you're going to get your text field back up. And we're going to type C, 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 C. Now what I would say is don't put any spaces in. It's really tempting to go C space, C space, C space, C space. You don't need to put the spaces in because of how Canvas will automatically try to do character spacing. You don't need to put them in. So in this case, 4 is going to do. It may be that you find with changing the font size that you want to put 5 or 6. It's up to you. But we'll start off with 4. And we're going to hit enter. So there we go. We have our text, we have our path. Now to join the two together. So we're going to press and hold shift and click on the circle so that we have both items selected. So if we look in our layers palette, we're going to see that both of our layers are blue. Then we're going to go to edit, which you can see on that right hand side, and I'll just hover there for a moment so that you can see that. And then we're going to go down to process overlap, and underneath that you've got an option for text, and you've got this T on a curved path. When you hold over it, it's going to say fit path. And we do that, and it's going to take that text and it's going to put it around the circle. So straight away you can see, hang on, there's something a bit weird here. So this is your start and you finish your line. So that is what's going on there. And you've got the overlap. So how do you fix it? We're going to go up here and hover over this number, and it's going to come up saying character spacing, and that's where we want to alter. Now, unlike on the machine, we can actually use a negative character space, and that's going to pull our shapes back together. And that's why we don't put the spaces in, because otherwise we'd be way too spaced out. But we can pull that right back, and we're looking to get them so they have a nice even space. So you want this space here to be equal to this one here. That's looking pretty good. Okay. Now we can click and drag that little crosshatch wherever we want to put it for our start finish line. So I'm going to say up at the top. Okay, and then we have our text. Now at this moment, if we were to send it to the machine, it may work, it may not work. It depends on, you know, the particular type of font you're using. But to make sure that it does work for certainty, what you want to do is just convert it to shapes. And that sets it in stone, so we can't edit that text anymore. So if you suddenly decide that you want to use a different character in that same alphabet, you're going to have to either go undo, or you're going to have to start the process from the beginning again. So as of now, this is all vectors ready to be cut or drawn. Now because this is quite intricate design, I'm going to set it to draw, and we can set our stroke colour to blue. So that's a visual reference straight away for us that we've done that process of setting it to draw, and when we take draw lines through to our machine, they're blue, so therefore by colouring it blue on canvas we know that it's done and dusted. Just trying to see what Linda says. Back to that trombone that we were talking about, Linda. I can't quite see the bottom of the screen. In the throes of a massive hailstorm. Wow. Wow. At the moment we have sunshine, but the clouds look a little grey. So now that we've done that lovely circle of text, and that text could be normal text, it doesn't have to be a design like this. We now need to create our cut lines. So if you remember the sketch that we had yesterday, those of you that took a screenshot can refer back to that. We need two cut lines. So we need an outer line that we know as 1 and an inner line that we know as 2. And we can do that the same way. So we can go back into our basic shapes. We can add our circle. We can bring that in. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag over the top. Okay, so we've got both the circle and our draw line selected. We're going to align to the middle and align to the centre. Like so. So we know that circle fits perfectly inside. Now I'm going to click off my layers so nothing is selected. And let's look at this circle. If you're happy with having it that close to your decoration, then that is absolutely fine. If not, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to resize that. But what I'm going to say is if we go to layers, make sure that you click on it in there instead of trying to click on it in here. We can then resize. Now, unlike our machine, you're going to see that it's going to go up to the top left corner. Okay? So that's the other thing to get your head around when you're working with canvas as opposed to your machine, is that instead of, whereas the machine will resize from that centre outwards, your canvas desktop is going to resize up to that top left corner. So when you're done and you're happy, you can just go back and align those shapes again, like so. Okay, so then we need an outside shape. Now if you want to use just another circle, that's fine. If you want to use something else, a little bit more detail, that's fine too. So I'm going to put a scallop edge around it. Wow, it's kind of wavy around the scallop. I'm not going to stretch that out. I'm going to position that roughly so I can see how much I need to come in. So it needs to come in just a little. Now, unlike most drawing software, if you press any of the like operator keys, like Control or Alt, or on a Mac you've got your little Apple key, then you're going to find that it doesn't really change. When you're using other software, you can find that sometimes those are going to change in terms of ratio, position of how it's resizing. So it's worth experimenting with those to see if they will do that for you. So I'm just going to bring that in just a little bit. Then we can click and drag over the top and we can align everything again to centre. It's going to look like that. Now, obviously, if your shape is not symmetrical, so let's say you've used the bunny from the machine, then when you do that centre function, it's not necessarily going to be right to align it in. So that's when you want to definitely be using offset rather than trying to use that line function. And then if you need to change something, undo it and just redo that offset function. In our layers, we can go in here and we can call this decoration, which is what I was doing yesterday. And this one is our number 2. And this one is our number 1. And we can save that with those titles so that when we come back next time and you kind of look at your layers, so when you go through needing to do your different materials, then you're going to have that as an option. And you can just do a save as for now. Let's go to desktop and start a new folder, and we'll call it Frames and Shakers. And at the moment this is a shaker. So what's the difference between a frame and a shaker? A frame is where you are going to literally cut it as one shape, and that's all you're going to do. And the difference then is that we actually want to subtract our number 2, so it needs to be on top, from our number 1. And that means then that we can actually weld other elements inside here, and it's going to act as a frame. So once you've done that process of subtracting, if I go to the layers, you can see that we now have something that looks like a polo or a donut. And then we can do a save as, and this time we can call it frame. So it's up to you which way around you want to do it. So that is Canvas. Are there any questions on that process before I move on to the next software? So one thing that I haven't shown you in terms of Canvas is how to work with what we did yesterday. So I'm going to do that very quickly. So I'll start a new document so that we can then have a fresh start. We're going to go to File, Import from your cutting machine in FCM, and it's going to bring in our flowers and our frame from yesterday. So I can still select all of those. I can move it up here, and we can see that actually there's our outer circle, our inner circle, and we can move those to the back to make our life a little bit easier. So to do that, we can just use Command or Control Shift and then the open square bracket key, and that's going to send those to the back straight away. Nice and easy. Then we can see our two flower groups that we did. Now if you remember the warning that came up when we sent it to the machine, it says if you group you can't ungroup. Well, in the desktop you can, so we can ungroup it and ungroup it, like so. So now we've got all of our flowers independent. So this is what I would do very quickly just to fix this, because to my mind it's not quite right. So first of all, I'm just going to sort out anything that is really obviously not quite lined up right. Not looking too bad. So now what I want to do is I'm going to rotate it so that we have two petals to the inside that are kind of spaced aligning to that centre line. And we can just grab this little top handle, click and drag, and then that is going to rotate our shape. As long as you've got two petals that are roughly following that curve, and that rotation is sorted. Okay, and this one can go that way. Now, okay, then we can select all of those. Once we're happy, we can regroup them. So that's Control G on a PC or Command G on a Mac. We can set it to draw, set that outline to blue so that we know that we set it to draw, and off we go. Just because at that size it's going to be pretty tricky to cut it successfully without getting these little bits that are kind of pulling, which we don't want. However, if you just change your blade, then go for it and have a go, see what happens. Okay, so again with our outlines we can set it to our 1 and our 2. So our outer one is 1. Our inner one is 2. And we can even rename our group to decoration. And when we do our save as, we can go shaker from SDX, and then we can still do our frame the same way as well if we want to. So just remember to pop that number 2 above the number 1 and don't let it go into that group. There we go. With those two selected, back to edit, subtract, and you're going to see that centre square disappears. Save as, frame. Okay, so there are your 2 options in Canvas. Next, let's take a little toddle across to the silhouette. Hello silhouette. So, I have the business edition, but everything I'm going to show you, you can do in the basic, apart from exporting to SVG. So if you want to design in silhouette for your scan and cut, you're going to need to upgrade it to that business edition so that you can get the file back out of there. So I'm going to start off with a circle. So I'm going to click and draw. So rather than just bringing in a shape, we're actually going to draw our circle. And if we press and hold shift, that's going to keep it as a circle for us. So far so good. Thank you for that circle. Then you have a choice. You can either do what I'm about to do with text or another shape, which is, really fun. If you want to do it with text, just convert it to a path before you do this next section. Now, in the basic version, you can use just another one of these shapes here and do it that way. If you are in a more advanced version, so if I go up to business, you can see that the look changes slightly and we have a lot more shapes that we can play with. So let's just grab a flower and we're just going to draw a flower. Now that flower could be anywhere on your mat. You can change it so that you have more pronounced petals. You can change the number of petals, like so. But if we go across to your replicate panel, so that is available both in basic, designer, business, take your pick. And then on this top bar here, we've got 3 different panels that we can look at. And we have one that is called Object on a Path. We can go show grab handle and it's going to come up with a circle in the middle. We can click and drag that circle and then put it onto a path, at which point you're going to see it's going to replicate lots of times around that path. Now, this is where it gets really fun to design with. So this circle here is our main shape. So if at any point we decide that we don't like that shape, we can drag it back off and change it to something else. But this next circle here controls the spacing. And you can see straight away it's automatically working out all that spacing for you. Okay. And we can still access our shape tools too. So if we go, actually, now that I've done that, I want those petals a bit bolder, we can do it that way. If we go, actually I want more petals, we can do it that way. And we haven't got to take that shape back off to re-edit to then bring it back in. So it's a lot easier in that sense. And then we have the flowers on that path. Super duper easy. When you're happy, you can just click release and it's going to release those flowers into that particular layout. And if I go back to my move tool, it's going to get that circle and we can delete that away because we've got our decoration in here. And as before, you can then press and hold shift, click and drag, and then we can move that circle. We can group our flowers. So let's go select these. So I'm just pressing and holding shift while clicking on each one and then grouping them, so that we can make sure that we've got that center circle aligned. So if we go into our line panel, and we can go middle and middle if you want to, or you can just use one of your center options at the top. Now, remember how I was saying it can sometimes be a bit weird if you try and do centers? Can you see here it's slightly off? So I'm just going to nudge that way, and it's only because of how the flowers are formed. Just so that that's right to my mind. There we go. There, happy with that. I'm going to add another circle. And back to our arrow tool, press and hold shift, and we can just click and drag those corner points till we're happy. another frame done. And nice and super duper easy. Next bit of software. So this time I'm going to go and do it in Affinity. Say hello Affinity. So we have a couple of options with Affinity. You can do it with a shape, which is when you're going to want to use symbol and do it that way. And we have text on the path, which is the same as what we did in Canvas. So let's start off with text on the path. So let's click and draw our circle. So again, we can press and hold that shift key to make sure we stay in a circle. And we can go to our text tool. And we want to make sure it's an artistic text tool. And when we hover over our path, you're going to see that the icon changes to a T with a little squiggly line underneath it. That's so that we know it is text on a path. We're going to click onto it and the fill that is in that circle is going to vanish. Don't panic at this point, that is absolutely correct of it to do so. So we know from Canvas that we quite liked the design that is a C. So let me just check I'm not missing any comments. Oh, I think I'm alright. And hi Anne. So what we're going to do is we're going to type our C, 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 same as what we did in Canvas. We're going to press and hold shift and we're going to use our left arrow key to highlight that last character and keep going. So 2, 3, 4, so that our text is selected. We can then go up to our font and we can go and find our other font, which was our floor decorations. There we go, and like so. And it's going to look really tiny by comparison to what Canvas would have brought it in. That's okay, because we can change it. And you're going to see that as we try and change the size, it's going to kind of ping round that shape. So number one, don't panic, because everything that is going on, we can fix it. Number two, just concentrate on the kind of size to the circle that you want. So even though at the moment, if I hover over 48, all those shapes, to my mind, are pointing in the wrong direction. Don't worry about that just yet. So I'm just going to go click on that, and there we go. So we've got the 4 items, and we can reverse our text path, and straight away that's going to solve most of your problems because our text is now facing the right way. Now, when you are doing text on a path, it actually treats that one path as two. So you have the outer edge of that path and the inner edge of that path. So if you want to do like 2 lines of text, nice and easy, just type it all in one go, off you, and you're done, you're flying. But sometimes you want to split it half and half, so that you've got like an arch that's going one way. So let's say Merry Christmas is going over the top of your circle, up the right way that you can read it. And then, and a Happy New Year could be the bottom half of your circle, but you might not necessarily want that to go upside down. So that's when you can split that same circle in 2, and that's what these little handles are for. So we can drag our different handles for the different bits. Now what's really weird is when you see these, you're automatically going to think that the one inside is going to go to the inside of the path, and that's not the case. So we're going to take that one. You can see that our shapes are moving around the outside. Now if you want to start it bang on the middle, that's fine, but But in most cases you're going to want that first character to be in the middle of that top. So something like that. Now if you're doing 2 lines, you're going to want to have it so that it snaps back to this point over here. And you're going to see as soon as you do that, it's going to say, yeah, look, I can see that that's going to divide into 4. And you can use those to help you actually space your design if you want to. But I want to have that at the top like that. Okay. Then we have red triangles, and that shows the end of that line. So if I do this at the moment, it's going to look like nothing is happening. And I'm going to take that line so that it meets back up with our green triangle. So far so good, we hope. Now, with our align tools up here, we're aligned left, so that means that our text aligns to the start point of our text. So if I say it that way, then it makes a bit more sense. If we set it to the middle, it's going to go between the middle of those points. If we go to the right, it's going to line up with that end point that we just moved. But if we go fully justified, it's going to look like it's gone left. And what that actually means is this last line is justified to the left. But if we click on the arrows, we've got justified all, and that's going to stretch that text around. So at which point then we can start to use this red triangle to actually help us out a little bit, so that we can do our manual spacing like so. So while it's not quite as simple as silhouette, you can certainly get it where you need to get it. And off you go. And there's a nice decoration. And at this point, you can convert it to curves. And off you go. Nice, simple. You can see it's grouped up here. If you want to weld those into one shape, same as what it is in Canvas, then what you need to do, just ungroup it, and you're going to see that you've got your 4 elements, and you can weld them together, and it's going to put them into one layer. Now, if you are working in Illustrator and you try and do that, you're going to find that it's not going to do it in quite the same way. It's going to keep it as a group just because they don't overlap. But not too bad. And then we can pop our circle back in. Press and hold Shift. There we go. And it's going to give us our nice easy centre. And because we're doing a cut file, what I would recommend is rather than leaving that filled, we're going to set that filled to nothing. So just under the colour tab, you can see you've got this grey circle, and there's one that's a little one that's white with red line through it. Just do that. It's going to take the fill out, and then the outside is known as the stroke, and that should be black. Go down into your stroke panel, and we can just put a line on that so that we can see there it is. And we're going to do the same for around the outside. So Shift, drag. Okay. Now I've literally done that from the corner of these images, so these are sitting right on that line. I want to make it a little bit bigger, so we can use our contour tool, which is the 3rd one now. We can click and drag so that it's going to be offset from there a little bit, and when you're happy, bake appearance, job done. Nice and easy, like so. So whenever you see a sort of free to download symbol font, don't think of it as a bit of a gimmick. It's one of those things that can actually be really useful to do quick projects, so that you can actually have a hand in designing your projects rather than just relying on things that you've downloaded that are pre-done. And you can go from there. So again, if you want to go to the text tool, type T, and it's exactly the same as in Canvas. And just click and off you go. Hyperbola, higher lane. and I hope you have enjoyed that very brief look at text on a path in Affinity. Now let's do it the other way. So I'm going to pop that one up there for now, and what we can do is, because we don't want to really be playing with it, I'm just going to group it and we can lock it. So that means I can't accidentally click on that and edit it. And you can do the same in Canvas as well. So if there's something that you don't want to move, then you can just lock it. It will still transfer across. It's only if you hide something that it won't transfer to your machine. But it just means that when you're working in Canvas, it won't move. Now that said, if you send something that is locked to your machine, once it's in your machine, it is not going to be locked anymore. It will still move. Yep, it is cool and it's so handy. So when you see like decoration fonts, they're quite fun to play with. So I have quite a few different ones. There's like a frame one, and even the frame one you can then go and do something similar to this with, just you have to be a little bit more involved in terms of getting the aperture right and things like that. So off we go with the next bit. The next option is that instead of having a path that we float a design around, which is how we do fit to path with text, is that we start off with a guide of a circle. And this, rather than being the inside edge of the text or the symbol, however you want to design, is actually should be considered the outside edge. Okay, so to draw that big enough for kind of the extent of what you want to draw. I'm going to take that line, and just because it's a guide, I'm going to make it light blue, so you can see in the stroke it's gone to light blue. I'm going to lock it, so that when I click off it, I can't accidentally click on. Now, in our shape tools, we've got the pie tool. And what I want to do is I'm going to click and drag so that it lines up with the corners of my guide, like so. And you're going to see that you have these two lines here, which are your start and end point. If we move one, it's going to give us all a kind of wedge shape, like so. That can give us a basis for a repeat. So with that shape selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my arrow tool and I'm going to convert it to curves. So we know that it's snapped to 45 degrees, so we should have a perfect circle. Notice I say should. You never know. So, with that selected, I'm going to go to my symbol palette. Now if that's not visible on your particular Affinity layout, just go into View, Studio, and then it's down here, it says Symbols. And this is how we can work with shapes in memory. So I'm going to create, and it's going to take that little symbol shape that we did, and it's going to create it as a symbol. Now, what are symbols useful for? Symbols are useful for whenever we need something to repeat. So that could be a pattern, it could be a frame, it could be a border, it could just be that you need to put a logo on every page of the artboard. It doesn't necessarily have to be something where it's kind of repeating with itself. But in this case, this is where symbols are really useful, in that we're going to be able to edit the symbol at the same time. So what we want to do is we're going to click off that and we're going to click on our symbol and drag it in. It's going to bring in another instance into our layers, and if we press and hold shift, we can rotate it and it's going to bring in the next bit of our circle. We can duplicate it in the same way, so Command and J on a Mac and Control and J on a PC, and we can rotate it again. Now, when we then do our Command and J, it's going to finish off that circle for us, nice and easy. So it's a really handy little shortcut to do, rather than dragging it back in and having to rotate it each time. And you can see next to your symbol you've got a little drop down, and if we drop one down, doesn't matter which one, you can see that inside that symbol we have a curve. So a symbol is a group, so if you treat it like a group, then you'll be able to kind of get your head around it a little bit easier. So into that group we can draw anything that we like. So it could be text, it could be that we import a file, it could be that we just do a basic shape. So Affinity, you know what I love about it is the plethora of basic shapes that we can use to design with. So I'm going to go back down to my shape tool, click and hold to get that drop out menu, and let's go for a cog tool, because our decoration we're planning on drawing rather than cutting, so it doesn't matter that it's got that hole in the middle. And we can just click and draw a cog, and you can see straight away, because I'm drawing within that group, it's multiplying itself across all those symbols on the fly, nice and simple. Now if ever you have an issue where it throws like a memory issue, number one, you're going to need to clear some space on your hard drive, always a good one. Restart your computer if it hasn't been restarted in a while and try again. Or what you can do is just work on one copy of that symbol, then bring them back in after you've done the editing. So it can just be sometimes that older computers in particular might struggle. So once we've got our shape drawn, we can go back to our arrow tool to resize, and don't forget to press and hold that shift button to keep it in proportion. Now I'm going to zoom in. So at the moment our background for our symbol is in the blue, which is useful for us at the moment because it's a guide, but this actual shape in here we're going to want to actually draw, so I'm just going to pop that into a blue colour. So nice and basic blue, is 100% cyan, 100% magenta. Nice, simple, off you go. And let's go and pop that around the outside. If we go back to any of our shape tools and click, you're going to see that with that shape selected you're going to get those little handles back. So let me see if I can zoom in just a bit more, just so you can see that a little bit better. So if you need to pan across your screen, just press and hold space. It's a nice, quick, easy way of doing it. And back to our shape tool. So you can see those red dots. We can drag in that centre, like so. We can then say that we want those cogs to curve, so you can drag that out, so it's going to curve. And then we can say where we want this outer point to go, so we can take it all the way out here, so it looks something a bit like an octagon. Back to the toys that. Or you can drag it in so that it's going to look more flower-like. And we can also change how they join there, so I'm just going to pop that there, so we have something that looks like that. So far so good. And we have a flower. When you're happy with that shape, we can convert it to curve. And there we go. If you then want to round the tips of your petals, we're going to use the node tool. Scary. And all we're going to do is just click each node while holding the shift key that's around the outside. tool down is the corner tool. We can click on any of those highlighted nodes and drag in towards the centre of our petal, and you can see that it changes all of them like so, so that we've got nice rounded petals. Not bad for a cog tool, eh? So if at this point you go, well actually what I'd really like is, let's put each of these points here, and you can do that. And then you know that everything is spaced correctly. And we can even then go to, let's do a square start tool, and we can pop in another one of those. Again, press and hold shift so that we're keeping it in proportion. I'm going to use the rotate function so that I can get it which way around I want it to go. Let's go in the middle. That's not looking too bad. And again, we have shape options with this one too, just not as many. So let's do that. And whenever you click off and you haven't got anything selected, just before you do your next drawing, click back on one of those objects that's in that symbol, so that you make sure that when you then draw, it's going to appear in the right place. So I'm just going to press and hold shift so that I get a circle. I'm going to move that. If snapping is getting annoying, just press and hold Alt so that it doesn't snap in the wrong place. Then if we hold Alt first before we click, we can get a duplicate. And I'm just going to pop that in the middle there. So straight away we can see that something is a little bit off with this spacing here. And we can fix it. There we go. We have a little decorative border that we can use. And the last step before we finish and seal all that down into one draw file is just to get rid of that guide in our symbol. So all those triangles go, and we can get rid of the ellipse that is our guide. So what do we do with these symbols so that we can actually then send those to our machine? So if at the moment we were to export this to SVG, it may or may not work, but just to make absolutely certain, what we want to do is detach, and they're all going to go to groups instead. But you'll notice that you've still got that symbol in here if you need it. I'm going to ungroup it all, so Command Shift G on a Mac and Control Shift G on a PC, and we can weld those back together to get our decoration. And we can even rename it in here to decoration, and we can do our circles as before with our 1 and our 2. Just can move that over just slightly. So let's just shift and drag. Want it a little bit bigger. There we go, over the top. So hold Alt first, then click and drag to get a copy. And Shift is going to keep it in proportion. And then when you've got it in centre, if you wanted it to the centre, if you hold the Apple button on a Mac, or the command rather, and the control button on a PC and resize, you're going to see it's going to do it from the centre, at which point you're going to go, that's great, but how do I keep it in proportion? just add a shift key to that, and then it's going to go to a circle. And there we go. With those two outer circles, we're just going to set those to black. So take your slider down to 0 for your magenta and to your cyan, and whack it up for your black. And there you go. You have a lovely file. We have our 2 cut line, our 1 cut line, and then when we do our save as, and I want to go back to our folder and shaker AD, try and remember to type the K, and then we can export it. So this is the important step when you're working in Affinity. It's just to export it using the scan and cut settings that I've covered in previous classes. And when you do that, it's going to hop back to the last folder it did, so just remember to just change it back to the correct folder. And we can go from there. So let me just see if I can get the... Thank you, Tracy. So Tracy's saying it looks very pretty, which is cool. And it's a really quick, simple way of creating frames, and they look like you spent hours going around and doing your node tool, and it's not. It's just click, 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 job done. So the computer can really help speed up that process for you. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'm going to call it a day there. If anybody wants me to show that process in Illustrator or Shortcuts a lot, then do let me know. Bye for now. Bye.